Dear students, welcome you all. In the last class, we have discussed in detail about how to determine the sample size for testing, how to determine the sample size for testing. Okay, and then we have discussed about the sampling process. So that is what is this sampling and what is the need for sampling in this textile testing, and then so what are the advantages of doing the sampling in this testing process. So about all these things we have discussed in detail. So okay, before going to today's class, where I like to just brief you, so what is it we have discussed in that last class. Okay, so when it comes to determination of sample size for testing, sample size for testing, that means suppose if you are having a, say for example 1000 kgs of yarn with you, if you want to test it, if you want to know the quality of the yarn which you have produced, it is not possible for you to test the entire bulk, is it right? Entire 1000 kgs of yarn, where you have to pick some sample from the 1000 kgs of yarn and then you have to test it. Okay, and based on the test results, where you are going to expect, okay, this is what the quality of our bulk is. Okay, so here there is a question, so how many number of samples I need to select? How many number of samples I need to select? Say 100 samples or 200 samples or 300 samples or 10 samples. So this is what the question is. So in the last class we have discussed about this concept, where there are certain pre-conditions or specified conditions, like what is that average you are expecting, what is that percentage you are giving for allowance, like the error allowance you are giving. Okay, and then what is that interval you are giving, like confidence probability percentage you are giving, either it is 95% or 99% or 90%. So based on that criteria, so where we have seen a formula and we have find out how many number of samples we need to pick and how many number of samples we need to test so that the expected conditions are going to reach. So this is about the determination of sample size for testing. And when it comes to sampling, so if you want to understand this sampling, so you should understand, as I told you already in the last class, what is a population and what is a sample. Population is nothing but the entire system. Say if you say for example 1000 kgs of yarn you have produced, in the sense that 1000 kgs is nothing but your population. So if you want to know the quality of the 1000 kgs of yarn you have produced, that means you have to pick some sample. Randomly you have to pick some sample. That sample might be 1 kg, that's how the sample might be 2 kgs. That is called a sample. And whatever the results you are getting from the sample, that you are going to apply for the entire population. Suppose the sample you have measured is of good quality, okay, and you are going to relate the same thing with the entire population. That is called as sampling. And when it comes to textile testing, so why we are doing the sampling? The sampling we are doing so where we can't test the entire thing which we have produced. If you have produced 1000 kgs of yarn, in the sense the entire 1000 kgs, it is highly impossible for you to test it. Why? Because the testing involves, some kind of test involves the destructive type. That means once you test it, where you can't use a sample again. For example, if you are measuring strength, for example, so after the strength measurement, where you can't reuse it sample, where you cannot reuse it sample, so that is called as destructive test. So once if you do for example, if you are testing the 1000 kgs of yarn, like through the destructive test, so can you use that yarn again? So your entire production is going to lose, and whatever the time you are spending for testing is going to be lost. You have to pay for the labor, those who are doing testing. Likewise, there are a lot of difficulties in finding out or in testing the entire population. That's why where in textile testing or whatever it may be, the manufacturing sector it is, where they are testing a few samples randomly, they are selecting from the entire population. Okay, so that is about this sampling. So about these two topics we have discussed already in the last class in detail. Okay, hope you understand those concepts. Okay, so today's class we are going to discuss about two important topics, which is about the sampling error. That means while doing this sampling process, which we have already discussed in the previous class, okay, while doing the sampling, so what kind of errors may come, what are the probability of errors may come, and how to overcome these errors. So that is sampling error. And then we are going to discuss about the point and interval estimation of mean and variance. So how to estimate the mean and variance of a population based on point and interval type. So we will discuss in detail about what is this point estimation of mean and variance, and then interval estimation of mean and variance with suitable examples. And finally, number of tests, how to select the number of tests, for the required quality. Okay, so these three topics we are going to discuss in today's presentation. Okay, now first let us discuss about this sampling error. Okay, now if you look at this sentence, sampling error, where first you try to understand, try to think about this statement, sampling error. That means sampling already you know. That means you have an entire population. From the population you are selecting the sample. In the last class already we have discussed, in sampling we have three different types of sampling: random sampling, numerical sampling, and bias sampling. So which one is most advantageous? Obviously random sample is very good sampling process. Why? Because from the population we are selecting the samples randomly. Instead of from one particular place, we are selecting the samples randomly from the population. Okay, randomly from the population. That is called as sampling. When it comes to error in the sense what? So chances of getting mistakes. Okay, chances of getting mistakes. Now if you relate these two words together, sampling error, that means while doing sampling, what kind of probable errors are there, what kind of probable mistakes that are happening, which will affect the results of the entire population. That is called as sampling error. Suppose while doing sampling, if you did some mistake, if you have not done the sampling properly, so what it will result? So will the sample results, whatever the results we are getting, do you think that results will be applicable or it represent the entire population? Do you think it will represent the entire population? No, obviously it is not. That time when you send that entire your whatever you have produced to the suppliers or vendors, obviously there they will reject it. So the sampling is very, very important, where we should try to minimize the errors, so that we come to know what is that exact quality of products that we have produced. Okay, now if you look at this sampling error, it is a statistical error. That occur when an analyst, nothing but the person who is doing this sampling process, okay, does not select a sample, when an analyst does not select a sample that represent the entire population of the data, does not select a sample that represent the entire population of data. So instead of selecting the sample which represent the entire selection of data, the entire population, if we select only from a particular place, only from a particular place. In the last class also I have given you so many examples. Suppose if you place all your cones at one rack, suppose if you are selecting the cone for that is if you are doing sampling, and if you are selecting the cone which is a good looking one, or the cones which are placed only in the bottom, or the cones which are placed only in the top, that kind of things, that kind of sampling if you do, selection if you do, so that is called as a sampling error. Okay, and whatever the results which are found in the sample, if you do in that way, okay, which do not represent the results that would be obtained from the entire population. So understand carefully, I am just repeating it again. So whatever the sampling you did with some error, whatever the results you are getting from the sample, okay, which do not represent the entire population. Suppose think that if you could have measured the entire population, so whatever the results we are getting there, that is right. But if you do this error in the sampling, and whatever the sample results you are getting, so if you cannot match these two results, you cannot match these two results. Okay. The sampling is an analysis, as you already know. The sampling is an analysis performed by selecting a number of observations from a larger population. From the larger population, larger population, we are collecting the number of observations. That observations we are testing, and whatever the results we are getting, that we are going to relate to the population. So in the entire process, where you have to, the analyst have to be keep in mind where he should do the sampling properly. There should not be any bias in the sampling process. There should not be any mistakes while doing the sampling process. Otherwise, the results will not, we cannot match or we cannot relate the sample results with population. So this is called sampling error. Okay. So the selection can produce both sample errors. Okay, both sample errors. Okay. Now, if we try to if we try to understand what is the sampling errors, so it is a deviation in sample values versus the true population values in simple terms. So, while measuring the samples, where we are getting one kind of results. Suppose if you test the entire population, where you are getting another kind of results. So that means there is a deviation from sample results and then population value. This is called as sampling error. And due to the fact that the sample is not a representative of population or biased in some way. So because of this, so we can easily say that this, whatever the sample you have selected, it is not a true representative of the entire population. Okay. So even whatever this random sample we are talking about, which is a good way of doing sampling, so it is also having some sampling error. Okay. So where again, if you see this random sampling, you are picking from random places only, and approximately you are just picking it. So that time also there are certain chances of errors are there. Okay. And whatever this sampling errors are there, which can be eliminated or minimized when the sample size is increased. This is one of the best way to minimize the sampling errors. So instead of doing testing of 10 samples, if you increase the sample size to 20 or 25, where you can minimize the sample errors. Okay. So the sample size is increased, and also by ensuring that the sample adequately represent the entire population. Though the analyst who is doing the sampling he should ensure that so he is doing the right way of sampling. Okay, without any bias he should do the sampling. These are the two main ways we can minimize the sampling errors. We can minimize the sampling errors. And the sampling method used to select a fiber for testing depends upon the form in which the fiber is available. The form in which the fiber or any material that is available. Okay, thus the fiber may be in bales, that fiber may be in sliver, that may be in webs, that may be in yarn, etc. Will demand the different techniques of doing sampling. Different techniques of doing sampling. Okay, and whatever the test results of sample, will not necessarily be identical to the test results, which would have been obtained by testing the bulk or population. Okay, but even then, the if you follow this the process of sampling, if you ensure that the process of sampling followed is right, so even though it is not exactly matched, then it is fine with the population results. But the procedure we need to follow should be right. Okay, and if you look at the sampling error, the two sources of error may be present. One is random error and second one is biased error. There are two types of errors will be there. Two sources of errors may be present. One is random error and second one is biased error. Now, if you look at this biased error, this bias error may occur due to different ways. Bias in the sense, you know it already, na? Suppose if you are biased with someone else, that means whatever he do, whatever the activities he is doing, you are saying always he is right. That means even though he is doing some wrong things, where you are supporting him always, that is called as biasing the person. Understand? So suppose if you are doing sampling in a bias sampling, in the sense you are selecting only the cones which are looking good, or you are selecting only the cones which doesn't have any damages. Understand? That kind of sampling is called as biased sampling. Okay. If you look at this biased error, it may come due to different ways. The first one is bias due to physical characteristics. Bias due to physical characteristics in the fiber. That is, what do you mean by physical characteristics? Suppose, for example, if you consider the length of fibers, the longer length of fibers always have a greater chance of being selected. Longer length of fibers always have a greater chance of being selected from the bale. So from the sample, if all the fibers or most of the fibers are longer, you can't, where the sample cannot represent the entire bulk. So that should be avoided. And the second one is position relate to the person. Position relate to the person. That means the position is nothing but the position of samples relative to the person. That means the lab assistant or the analyst who is doing the sampling may pick bobbins from top layer case of bobbins, top layer case of cones which we have placed. Understand? That is called as the bias due to position relate to the person. And finally, subconscious bias. That means a person selecting cones will pick the best looking cones from the ridges, free from any other faults. So these are the different ways where the bias error can occur. So you know the reason behind this biased error, and you have to start overcoming these reasons. Like they should, while doing sampling, where we have to keep in mind where that should be random, and these physical characteristics cannot enter into it. Okay, physical characteristics where we should keep in mind. That is, the longer fibers always have a greater chance. So while selecting where we should keep these things in mind. Okay, and the next one is random error. Random error. So random error can also occur due to the measuring instrument. Measuring instrument. Suppose you are weighing the samples in a weighing balance. So it is not in a good working condition. Say whatever the samples you are weighing, where it is having some kind of error. So that is called as random error. Okay. So this is all about sampling errors. This is all about sampling errors. So that means sampling error in the sense while doing sampling. So some kind of the person who is doing sampling. So where he is doing some kind of the process or procedure in a wrong way, so that the errors which are coming because of that errors, where the results of the samples, it is not a true representative of the entire population. Already you know the reason behind why we are doing this sampling. Why we are doing the sampling. So we can't test the entire population or entire bulk which we have produced. So in order to know the quality of the entire population or entire bulk, where we are picking some samples, randomly, and based on the results of the samples, we are going to have an estimation about the quality of the entire population. Quality of the entire population. So if that might be the case, where we should try to minimize, so as maximum as errors in the sampling process. Okay, there are two sources of errors may present. One is random error and biased error. So we have to minimize these errors so that the results will be the true representative of entire population. Understand? So this is all about the sampling errors. Hope you understand this concept. Okay. Though the next we are going to discuss about the estimation. The estimation of mean and variance. Estimation of mean and variance of the entire population. Entire population. How to estimate it? Okay. How to estimate the mean and variance. So before going to this topic, I like to know, so what is this mean and variance? I hope you know this, know the answer. What is mean and what is variance? Mean is nothing but the average of the test results. Average of the test results. Variance is nothing but, so from the mean, whatever the results you are getting, from the mean, how it is varied. So what is that variation between your mean value and then your test results? That is called as variance. So in this topic we are going to discuss about how to estimate the mean and variance of the population parameters, which is nothing but mean and variance. Okay, actually we don't know the population parameters. Okay, population parameters. From the sample parameters only, we are going to estimate our population parameters, which is nothing but mean and variance. Okay, now first we will see, we'll try to figure it out or find it out. What is the meaning of estimation? I told you already, what is this mean and variance? Mean and variance. Now we are going to discuss about what is this estimation. So it's a general term only, so nothing technical. So say for example, if you are estimating something, so what is the estimate expenditure of this month? Okay, likewise, this is a general sense only. Okay, estimation means finding the values of the unknown population parameters. Unknown population parameters. Say for example, here think that the population is the 1000 kgs of yarn we have produced. We don't know the parameters of the 1000 kgs of yarn. Say for example, mean and then variance. variance in a, say for example, strength results. If you want to know the strength results of the entire population, okay, which you don't know, okay, that is called as unknown population parameters on the basis of sample selected from that population. Understand? I hope you understand this concept. Estimation means finding out the values of the unknown population parameters on the basis of sample selected from that population. Say for example, 1000 kgs of yarn is there and you wish to know the quality of, that is the strength of yarn you have produced. Now it is not possible to test the 1000 kgs of yarn. Say for example, we have taken a sample. So for example, we have taken 2 kgs of yarn randomly from the 1000 kgs. Now we have tested it. So now we have tested the 2 kgs of yarn and now we arrived at the test results. Now we arrived at the strength results. Now based on whatever the samples we have selected, the 2 kgs of yarn test results, we are going to estimate. So what is the strength of the 1000 kgs of yarn? What could be the strength of the 1000 kgs of yarn is? That means from the sample results we are going to estimate the population results. From the sample results we are going to estimate the population results. That is called as estimation. So again I am repeating, so listen carefully. So estimation means finding the values of the unknown population parameters. That parameters may be, I have given you example of strength, that may be evenness, that may be hairiness, that may be count, that may be twist, whatever it may be the parameter it is. So finding the values of unknown population parameters on the basis of sample selected from that population. On the basis of sample selected from that population. So that is called as estimation. Okay. Now if you look at this estimation, there are 2 different ways we can estimate the population parameters. There are 2 different ways we can estimate the population parameters. So one is point estimation and second one is interval estimation. One is point estimation and second one is interval estimation. These are the 2 different types of estimation. Okay. So for example, to make you clear in this concept what is point and what is interval estimation. For example, when we carry out some sample count test, that means we have selected some samples, yarn samples, and we are carrying out count test, okay, on the basis of sample count test. Okay, now we have find out the count of the yarn samples and now we are having the results. Now we are having the results. For example, the results we are finding and the mean of the result such as 39.5. When we find the mean of the result such as 39.5, then it is called as point estimation. That means the mean of the yarn count, it is exactly 39.5. So you are just pointing it out. That is called as point estimation. Okay. Now, whatever the results are, when we find the results in interval of type, that means in between 2 values. The results may be, the yarn count may be in between 2 values. If you are claiming like that, or if you are estimating the results like that, then it is called as interval estimation. Say for example, here you can see the mean of the test results may vary in between 39.2 and 40.8. Damn sure the mean average, that is mean or average counter of the sample selected, it is ranging in between 2 values, that is 39.2 and 40.8. So this type of estimation we call it as interval estimation. This type of estimation we call it as interval estimation. Okay. So now we will discuss in detail about what is this point estimation. Okay. And in this point estimation, how to find out this mean and variance. Okay. And then we will talk about what is interval estimation, and in interval estimation how to find out mean and variance of unknown population parameters from the sample which we have selected from that population. Okay, so these things we are going to discuss further in these slides, further from the next slides. Okay, now so let us start discuss in detail about this point estimation. Okay, now so as we already discussed in the last slide, so what is point estimation? We are estimating the unknown population parameter from the sample selected. So in the form of a exact point or in the form of a single value, that is called as point estimation. Okay, so when the unknown population parameter is estimated in the form of a single value, is called as point estimation. Only single value will be there. Okay, so where the average count will be this much, that's it. This is called as point estimation. Okay, now this point estimation can be done by many ways. So one of the ways by doing this unbiased estimator, Now in this method or in this process where we are finding out the mean and variance. Okay, now for that we are taking a statistic which we are representing with T, is called the unbiased estimator of the unknown population parameter theta. So again I am repeating, a statistic T is called the unbiased estimator of the population parameter theta. That is, estimation of T, that is equal to theta. Estimation of T is equal to theta. So this theta is nothing but the unknown population parameter, and a T is nothing but an unbiased estimator. Okay, now so in this point estimation where the sample mean x is the unbiased estimator of population mean mu. So here you should note that, so we are representing the parameters of sample as well as population with some notations. Okay, so when it comes to population, where the parameters, say for example mean and variance, in case of sample also mean and variance will be there. Okay, but the representation of these parameters for both population as well as sample, the representations are different. For example, the sample mean we are representing with x, and the variance we are representing with s square. In the same way, population where the mean we are representing with mu, which you can see in the slide, and whereas the variance we are representing with sigma square. So this thing you need to understand, where in our upcoming slides where you are going to see the terminologies. Okay, now you can see estimator of x is equal to mu. That means what? The sample mean, which is nothing but x, is the unbiased estimator of population mean mu. Unbiased estimator of population mean mu. Okay, now suppose if you take x1, x2 and so on, xn is the sample, this many samples we are having with a size small n. So sample size we are representing with small n, selected from the population which is having the mean mu and variance sigma square. So here you can see it clearly. The population is having the parameters like mean and variance. Mean we are representing with mu and variance we are representing with sigma square. So from this population, okay, we have selected a sample size small n where it is having x1 to xn samples. x1 to xn samples. So if that might be the case, where estimator of xi, that is xi is equal to mu. So which is nothing but the first point also you can see. So the unbiased estimator of population mean mu, that is sample mean, which we are representing with x. In the same way, the sample variance v of x is the unbiased estimator of population variance, that is sigma square. So E of xi is equal to mu, and variance we can represent v of xi is equal to sigma square. Okay. Now in the same way, if you see this population, the sample variance we are representing with v of x, that is equal to sigma square by n. This is the formula, sigma square by n. So if you want to find out the sample variance in point estimation, you have to use this formula, v of x is equal to sigma square by n. That is sample variance of mean is equal to, that is v of x bar is equal to sigma square by n. So okay, in the same way, if you want to find out the sample mean, okay, so the sample mean is the estimator of population mean, and in the same way, if you want to estimate the sample variance of mean, that is v of x bar is equal to sigma square by n, you can use this formula. And if you want to find out the sample mean square values, that is capital S square is equal to 1 by n minus 1 into, say, multiplied by sigma xi square minus n into x bar square. Okay, so is the unbiased estimator of population variance sigma square. So that is E of S square is equal to sigma square. This S square is nothing but that is sample variance. So the unbiased estimator of sample variance, the sample variance is equal to sigma square. Okay, so by using these formulas in point estimation, we can find out the sample, that is mean and variance of the population. Okay, so this is about the point estimation. So in point estimation, we are just estimating the population parameters as a single value. Either it is mean or either it is variance. Only single value will be there. Okay. Now, when it comes to interval estimation, I told you already in the previous slides, where in interval estimation, we are estimating the population parameters. In between two numbers, lower limit and then upper limit. That means the value is definitely, there is a guarantee that the values are lies between these two values, lower limit and then upper limit. Okay, so that kind of estimation is called as interval estimation. Okay, so here in brackets also you can see, that is confidence interval is given. So why it is said to be confidence interval? Whatever the interval estimation we are doing is always obtained with some guarantee or the confidence. That means, okay, these results of the population, of the values of the population, it lies in between these two values. That kind of guarantee we are saying, or that kind of confidence we are saying. Okay, that's why this interval estimation is also called as confidence interval. Confidence interval. Okay, so instead of if you look at this interval estimation term, so if you just take this estimation, so instead of interval estimation, most of the times you are going to just come across with this confidence interval name. Confidence interval name. So interval estimation or confidence interval, both are same. Okay. If you look at this confidence interval, where the confidence, we are saying at confidence, na? So that means, are you saying 100% confidence, or are you saying 99% confidence, or are you saying 95% confidence? So what is that confidence? What is that confidence levels? Okay, the confidence of the confidence interval, is always given in percentage. Whether it is with 100% confidence you are saying, that means no chances of error, or you are saying 95% confidence, that means 5% might be chances for error, or are you saying at 99% confidence, that means 1% you are leaving it as an error, or possible chances are there. So that is called as where the confidence of confidence interval always we are saying in terms of percentage, and that we are representing with, so 1 minus alpha into 100 percentage. 1 minus alpha into 100 percentage. Here this alpha is related to level of significance. Level of significance. Suppose if the level of significance of the alpha is 5%. Whatever this alpha is there, it is related to level of significance only. Suppose if level of significance is 5%, that means out of 100%, the level of significance is 5%. That means the alpha value is equal to 5 divided by 100, which is nothing but 0.05. Now the alpha value is 0.05. So if you just simply substitute this 0.05 alpha value in that above formula, 1 minus alpha into 100, where you can get 95% is the confidence of confident interval. Confidence of confident interval. Understand? So again I am repeating, whenever this interval estimation is there, like the population parameters which lies between two values, we are saying these with some confidence. So what is that level of confidence is? Are you saying this with 100% level of confidence? Or are you saying with 95% level of confidence? Or are you saying with 90% level of confidence? So what is that confidence level? So that we are representing with a percentage, and that is represented by 1 minus alpha into 100. 1 minus alpha into 100. Here this alpha value is related to level of significance. Say for example, the level of significance is 5%. Then the alpha value is 0.05. That means how this 0.05 came? 5 divided by 100. So alpha value is 0.05. Alpha value is 0.05. Now if you substitute this alpha value, so 1 minus 0.05 multiplied by 100 will give you 95%. So this 95% is the confidence of confident interval. Confidence of confidence interval. Suppose if you take the level of significance is 1%, so then alpha becomes 0.01. Then if you just calculate it, so where the confidence of confident interval is going to be 99%. Suppose if you take the level of significance is 10%, then the alpha value becomes 0.10. Then what could be the level of, that is confidence of confidence interval? That is 90%. That means 10% where there might be some where it may not relate. Understand? So this is what this confidence interval is. Confidence interval is. Hope you understand this. Okay, now here you can see. Now you can see these confidence intervals are interval estimation where the estimation of mean okay can be done for small samples as well as large samples. So the estimation process is not same for the entire sample size, that is whatever it may be the sample size, it is not like that. So in statistical terminologies, if the sample size, in the last slide also we have seen, previous slides, so sample size we are representing with small n. Sample size we are representing with small n. Suppose if the sample size small n which is below 30, that is n is less than 30, we call it as a small sample. Suppose if the sample size small n value it is greater than 30, then we are calling it as a large sample. Again I am repeating. So in statistical terms, where if the sample size is less than 30, that is n value less than 30 or equal to 30, we call it as a small sample. If the n value is greater than 30, that may be 100 or that may be 200 also, we call it as a, or it comes under large sample. Here the confidence interval we can find out for the mean. Okay, so large sample we can find out as well as small sample also we can find out, but we need to use different formulas. Okay, here is a formula. If the sample size is more than 30, if the sample size is more than 30, okay, where these are the formulas to find out the population mean. Now you can see here two formulas are given. If the lambda is known and if lambda is unknown. Okay, so if you look at the formula, x bar minus z alpha by 2 sigma divided by root n, comma x bar plus, instead of minus here plus will be there. That is the only difference. So here x bar is nothing but our sample mean and s is nothing but sample standard deviation. Okay, this sigma is nothing but population standard deviation. Suppose in first case, if population standard deviation is known, we can go with the first formula. Suppose if standard deviation of population is not known, only if sample mean and sample standard deviation is there, where you can use the second formula. This z is nothing but z values. So z test is there, which we are going to study in our next presentations. Okay, where this z test is there, and where the z values, if you want to know, where there is a separate table for that. Okay, so based on the alpha values, say for example the confidence interval 95%, 99 or 90%, where we have the z values, where we have to substitute that values from the table and here, and we have to simplify it. Okay, since the formula, if you look at the first one is minus and second one is plus, so that obviously we will get lower value as well as upper value, so that we can say that the unknown population parameters are in between lower and upper limits. Okay, now if you look at, if, and previous slides also we have said, if level of significance is 5%, then the confident interval is 95%. So at 95% confident interval, z alpha by 2 value is 1.96. So that's why here you can see in the first formula, x bar minus 1.96 into sigma by root n. So what is sigma here? Sigma is nothing but population standard deviation. So in the given problem, if population standard deviation is known, where we can simply use this formula to find out the mean value of population. Suppose if population standard deviation is unknown, only sample values are there. Okay, like x bar is sample average and capital S is nothing but sample standard deviation. If these two values are given, we can use the second formula to find out the population mean. Okay, no problem. You can easily understand. So we are going to discuss about few examples by using these formulas. That time you can easily understand. By looking at these formulas, don't get panic. Okay, these are very simple only. Okay. Now in the second instant, you can take if the level of significance is 1%. That means the confidence level is 99%. 90. So with 99% confidence, I am saying that okay, the mean value lies between these two values only. So likewise, you are saying in the above case with 95% confidence, you are saying where the mean values of the population lies between these two. That is it. Okay. Here you can see instead of 1.96 in the above formula, here you can see 2.57 is there. So these are all the values which are there in the Z table. This is nothing but the Z alpha by 2 is 2.57 at 99% confident interval, and the Z alpha by 2 value at 95% confident level is 1.96. So these values are the constants we are getting it from the Z table. Okay. Now we have to substitute the values based on the problem. We have to select the right formula, and we have to substitute the values, and we have to find it out the confident intervals. Okay. Now we will see one example how to find out this confidence interval when the sample size is more than 100. Okay, more than 30. More than 30, not 100, more than 30. Now you can, I'll just read out the problem, try to understand it carefully. Okay, so 35 hand test made. So 35 hand test made on a draw frame sliver have shown the mean and standard deviation of the hank as 0.12 and 0.25 respectively. 0.12 and 0.025 respectively. Find 99% and 95% confidence interval for the mean hank of sliver and comment on each of them. Now try to understand the problem. I'll just read out once again. Okay, so total how many number of tests made? 35 hand tests made. So the sample size is more than 35, so we can confirm that okay, it is a large sample. Okay, so 35 hand tests made on a draw frame sliver which shows the mean and standard deviation of the hank as 0.12 and 0.025 respectively. That means the mean of the 35 test is 0.12 and standard deviation of this 35 hank test is 0.025. So here the mean value of sample and standard deviation is given. Okay, sample, mean and standard deviation is given. Okay, and what we have to find out at 95% and 99% confident interval, what is the mean hank of sliver? The mean hank of sliver is nothing but our population. So for this population, that is mean hank of sliver, what is at 95% and 99%, what is the mean value? What is the mean value? We need to find it out. Okay, so whenever in this whatever the problem you are solving, first you have to write down what is that given information. Now if you look at this solution for this problem, here first we have to identify what is the population and what is the sample and what kind of information is given in the problem. As it explained you already, here the population is nothing but what? The draw frame sliver. Draw frame sliver is nothing but the population. Now what other information is given here? The 35 hand tests are there. That means the small n value is 35. so that it is a large sample. And what other information is given here, where the x bar value, that is sample mean and standard deviation, is given. So how we are representing sample mean and standard deviation? Sample mean we are representing with x bar, that is 0.12, and sample standard deviation we are representing with capital S, that is 0.025. Now you have to go back to the previous slide and you have to see the formula. So based on the information given in the problem, which formula you have to select. Since S value is given, that is sample standard deviation is given, so where you can use this formula, x bar minus 1.96. So again you have to be careful. You have to use 1.96 or 2.75. So in order to know that, you should know what is that confidence interval is. So in the problem we are asked to find out at 95 and 99. So at 95% confidence, where the Z value, table value is 1.96. So x bar minus 1.96 into S divided by root n, comma, x bar plus 1.96 into S divided by root n, S divided by root n. Now you can see x bar value, which is given in the problem, 0.12, and capital S value 0.025. If you substitute all the values in the formula and if you simplify it, where the population mean mu value, it lies in between 0.1117 comma 0.1283. Now how you will comment on this? That means, so you can say at 95% confidence that, where the population mean mu, remember population mean we are representing with mu, this population mean mu value, it is ranging in between, so for 11.99 to 12.00 units. So when you just multiply by 100, you will get this. Instead of 0.11, you will get 11. Okay. So 11.99 to 12 units. So you are saying this with 95% confidence. Okay. When the confidence is going high, obviously, where the chances of problems are very, very less. Suppose, say for example, if you are saying at 99% confident, obviously these values also, these units also will be more. Understand? So this is how we need to find out the interval estimation of population mean. So according to the given information in the problem, we have to select the formula. If it is 99%, where the Z table value we have to take 2.75. If it is 90%, again you have to look at the Z table and then you have to use that constant here. It is not that for all the confident intervals levels you have to use the same formula. It is not like that. Depending upon what confident interval, whether confident level, whether it is 95% or 99% or 90%, you have to use the concerned Z value from the table. Okay, in the table. So anyhow, in the significant test we are going to see more problems related to Z test. That time also again we will discuss about this Z test and then how to see the table values from the Z table. Okay, so this is how we need to find out the population mean. Okay, in case of interval estimation. Okay, now in the same way, in case of small sample. So in the previous slides we have seen how to find out the population mean when the sample size is more than 30. So here where we are going to see the formula, suppose if sample size is less than 30 and at some confident interval, confident level, if you want to find out the population mean, you can use this formula. that is x bar minus t n minus 1 alpha by 2 into s divided by root n, comma x bar plus t n minus 1 alpha by 2 s divided by root n, s divided by root n. So here s is nothing but the estimate of population standard deviation. This is population standard deviation. So by using this formula, if sample size is less than 30, we can find out the population mean, that is mu value. Okay, so here t value, t is there, so we have to look at the t table. Depending upon alpha value, where we have to look at the t table to get the value. Okay. Next one is, so till now we have seen how to find out the population mean in interval estimation. In the same way, when it comes to population variance, again we have these formulas. Okay, by using these formulas, where we can find out the population variance, that is sigma square. So here you can see the formula. If sample size is that is small, sample size is small, that is less than 30, then at 95% or 99% confident level, where you can find out the sigma square value, that is population variance, by using these formulas. So where in the first case, if you know the population mean, if the population mean is given in the problem, you can use the first formula. If the population mean is not given, you can use the second formula. Understand? So based on the information given in the problem, you can use first or second formula to find out the population variance, that is sigma square. Understand? So this is all about the estimation of mean and variations. Mean and variance, estimation of mean and variance. Okay, so I'll just brief out what we have studied till now. Okay, so in this estimation of mean and variance, where we have studied in detail about what are the different types of what is an estimation, what is mean and what is variance, what is this estimation, okay, and what are the different types of estimations, point and interval type. In point estimation, how we are estimating the mean and variance, and in interval estimation, how we are estimating mean and variance. When it comes to point estimation, we are estimating the population, unknown population parameters in the form of a single value. When it comes to interval estimation, we are estimating the unknown population parameters in the form of or in between two limits. One is lower and one is upper. This we are estimating with some confidence, or we are telling with some confidence. Either it is 95% confident or 99% confident, where we are saying that, okay, where these population parameters, this much confidence, 99% or 95% confidence, it will lies in between these two values. And we have discussed even the formulas also to find out the same. And I have shown you one example how to find out this population mean using interval estimation. Okay, so this is how we need to find out, or we need to estimate the unknown population parameters from the sample selected from the given population. Okay, so this is all about this. Okay, though the final topic which we are going to discuss in today's class is number of tests. So that means how many number of tests we need to carry out. So in our last presentation, so we have discussed about this determination of sample size for testing. Is it right? So this is also more or less similar to that. Okay, so where with some example I'll explain you what is this. Okay, so if you look at the example, so by just going through the example, you will have some idea about, so what is this, how to find out the number of tests, based on the given set of conditions. Okay, now if you look at the problem, so try to understand the problem. I'll read it once. If the expected average linear density, which is nothing but count, is 14 text, and the coefficient of variation is 1.2 percentage. CV percentage is 1.2. Okay, that is variation in the test results is 1.2 percentage. Then find the sample size or number of tests to be made, so that the confidence of 95 percentage can be achieved. With the accuracy of mean plus or minus 0.5 percentage of mean. Now this is the problem. Now, so what is given in the problem? Or from the problem what we can understand, where the set of conditions are given, like the expected yarn count is 14 ticks, with a coefficient of variation, that is variation in the test results is 1.2 percentage should be there. It should not be more than that. Okay, and the confidence level should be at 95 percentage. So and error is, it is plus or minus 0.5 only from the mean. It should not be more than the 0.5, or it should not be less than 0.5. That is plus or minus 0.5 percentage mean. So at this situation, so accordingly we need to select or find out the number of tests to be made. So I'll just brief out again, where from the problem where we need to find out, or here we need to find out the number of tests to be made, so that the expected linear density should be 14 tests with a coefficient of variation of 1.2 percentage, and the means, accuracy of mean should be at plus or minus 5 percentage of mean, and the same time the confidence levels should be at 95 percentage. So these are the set conditions. So if all this has to be there, you are expecting all these things to be done. So how many number of tests you need to carry out? Now you see in the solution, first you try to figure it out, what is that information. So the confidence level is 95 percentage and coefficient of variation is 1.2. That is, whatever the results you are getting, sample results, where among them the variation is 1.2 percentage, and the level of accuracy, what is that level of accuracy? You are expecting plus or minus 5 percentage of mean. That is, from 14 texts you are expecting, you are allowing some allowing certain, like plus or minus 5 percentage you are expecting from 14 texts. So where that we are taking it in terms of k, that is 0.5. So we have a formula, that is n is equal to, so in previous class also we have discussed the same formula. N is equal to 1.96 whole square into CV square divided by k square. Here CV is nothing but 1.2, you can substitute the same, and k value is 0.5. So if you substitute and if you simplify, where you are getting n, which is nothing but number of tests to be made, is 22. So from this 22, what you can infer, thus for achieving 95% confidence and a mean of plus or minus 0.5 percentage of mean accuracy, if you want to get this much accuracy, the number of tests to be carried out is approximately 22. Understand? So hope you understand this problem. Okay. So this is how we need to find out the number of tests. Okay, so in order to find out this, you should know the expected conditions like linear density, coefficient of variation, and the accuracy levels. So whenever we are looking at some average values, where we have to give some accuracy, like the plus or minus we have to allow, that error we have to allow. So from the mean value, so what is that allowable limits are, plus or minus how much we are allowing, and at the same time what is that confidence level is, 95 or 99 or 100%. 100% no one will go. So mostly the confidence level is 95% only they are expecting. Okay, so this is how we need to find out the number of tests. Okay, so hope you understand the class. Okay, so in this presentation we have discussed in detail about the sampling errors, and then how to estimate the mean and variance, for unknown population parameters, and finally number of tests. Okay, so hope you understand this class, and in the next class we will discuss about the significant test. Okay, there we will discuss about the t-test, z-test, and analysis of variance in detail. So till then, so bye everyone, take care.